Welcome to the Thurgood Marshall Amenity Center. I'm LaRon Finney with the Finn Group. It has been my distinct pleasure, honor, and a lifetime dream to walk next to Dr. Alvin C. Hathaway Sr., who is the visionary behind this amazing building. Let's give him a round of applause, please. And then we're going to give him one more round of applause, please. Thank you. Yes, 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 yes. There we go. That's what I wanted. Yes, yes. Thank you so much. Before we get started, let's please welcome Bishop Dennis V. Proctor, Sr. from Amenity Zion Church, who's going to bless this amazing building, bless all of us in attendance. Bishop, thank you.
Let us pray. Gracious God, how we thank you for this day and the beauty thereof. We thank you for this occasion, this building that gives memorial to one of the giants that you allowed to walk this earth. Thurgood Marshall opened doors and opened lives. But then we thank you for the visionary who thought it not robbery to celebrate and elevate the legacy of one who has done so much. We thank you for Alvin C. Hathaway, the Reverend Doctor, who never stopped being the community activist that he'd always been. Thank you for his commitment, his partner in life, Kathleen. Thank you for giving them the stamina and the vision to pursue the ministry that you put in his heart that now will bless untold millions. And oh God, we pray that as he has blessed us, would you continue to bless him, that he might do the work that you've assigned to his hands. We thank you and we praise you in the name of our risen Savior, Jesus, whom we call the Christ. Amen.
Thank you, Bishop. So before we start the program, we want to hear from Justice Thurgood Marshall, who this building is named after. He walked these hallways. So please turn your attention to the video screens for a few words from Justice Thurgood Marshall.
Ladies and gentlemen, Justice Thurgood Marshall, Justice of the 20th century, Justice extraordinaire.
Historians will note this hour at the White House. In a Rose Garden ceremony, a 58-year-old great-grandson of a slave is nominated by President Johnson to be a Supreme Court justice. He is Solicitor General Thurgood Marshall, acknowledged the best-known Negro lawyer of the century. The president also calls his nominee best qualified.
I have just talked to the Chief Justice and informed him that I shall send to the Senate this afternoon the nomination of Mr. Thurgood Marshall, Solicitor General, to the position of Associate Justice, Supreme Court, made vacant by the resignation of Justice Tom C. Clark of Texas.
Thus, the highest court in the land, with the vacancy owing to the stepping down of Justice Clark, has named to its august body Thurgood Marshall, the first of his race so honored.
Whenever I'm requested to make a speech, I now have a standard letter. It's almost a form letter. It starts off with, I am out of the speaking business. After 60 years of it, I just gave it all. It's gone. But sometimes it's necessary. You know, we claim that we've made great advances. A lot of people do. I'm in the group that doesn't believe that. And some of you might not want to hear what I have to say about the problems that still remain. Why, when you get in high office, you do that? Well, I'll tell you why. As long as I've got breath, I am gonna say it. And I'm gonna repeat it. I repeatedly tell young people, you're better off than before. And be patient and things will get better. And the thing that gets me now is not only telling me that's what you told my father, they say that is what you told my grandfather, and things are no better for me. It's admitted in the Times, New York Times reports, or Time magazine, that a recent survey shows that racism is broader and stronger than before. We're not gaining ground, my friends. We might be losing. But one thing I'm sure of is there's no time to stop. And I say, and I don't know whether or how I could say more. All of us have a job. And one thing, we can't do it as an individual. And we can't do it as small groups. We've got to have the one thing in mind, what I've been saying for 50 to 60 years. I don't care about the Constitution alone, or this Declaration of Independence, all of the books together. It's not that important. What is important is a goal toward which you're moving. A goal that is the basis of true democracy, which is over and above the law. And it's something that won't happen, but you must pray for it and work for it. And that goal is very simple. That goal is that if a child, a Negro child, is born to a black mother in a state like Mississippi or any other state like that, born to the dumbest, poorest sharecropper is by merely drawing its first breath in a democracy there and without any more is born with the exact same rights as a similar child born to a white parent of the wealthiest person in the United States. No, it's not true. Of course it's not true. It never will be true. But I challenge anybody to take a position that that is not the goal that we should be shooting for.
I just want to thank each and every one of you for being here. Each one of you are very personal to me. Each and every one of you are persons I know intimately and professionally. We have tabernacled together to bring to this community the reality of what Justice Thurgood Marshall did say. He said that equality is that you get the same thing at the same time in the same place. And this facility, the quality of craftsmanship, African Americans all across the top line in terms of general contractors, architects, real estate, insurance, with the support of many, were able to bring to this community a world-class facility here on Division Street, in Upton, Marble Hill. And I think it's important for us to recognize that we aspire always to excellence. Excellence is the goal. Excellence is not defined by income or race. It's defined by character. And I want you to know that we are excited to invite you to our home, one of the world-class communities in America. You are here. And I want to just also say that I would not be doing what I am able to do without a family. A family is the building block of our society. And I want to thank my wife. We just celebrated 42 years. My son-in-love and my daughter, he's from Ghana, so he takes he made me go to Ghana last June, but he and then my grandson, Charles, Sydney, Adaria, and Charles. And then I'm blessed to have, as Elijah Cummings would say, a letter to a generation I may not see. I have Alvin Jr., Alvin III, Shanika, and Isaac. The rest of my family is here as well. There was an aspect of Justice Thurgood Marshall we may not realize, and that he was a global citizen. Justice Thurgood Marshall, when he attended Lincoln, he had as a classmate, beyond Langston Hughes, of course, but he also had Nkrumah. Nkrumah was the first president of Ghana. He had another relationship that was very significant, and that was with Kenyatta. Jomo Kenyatta was the first president of Kenya. And it was amazing. He asked Thurgood to assist with writing their constitution, which he did. He wrote their Bill of Rights. And as a result, Thurgood Marshall has this global presence when it comes to the freedom movement in terms of our brothers and sisters there on the mother continent. So I thought it was very important that this community, which is a world-class community, would have representatives from that world-class community here tonight. And so I want to say, and I'm going to ask just to come, and if you have a few words, my dear friend, Her Excellency Haja Alma Mahama, the ambassador from the Republic of Ghana. Now, she's so beautiful, she just smiled. And she graced us with that. Thank you, God bless you. And then, my dear beloved, Her Excellency, she allows me to call her just Matilda. She's the ambassador from Rwanda. Please. I had the opportunity to serve as a celebrant for two of her native country persons. They got married. I was able to marry them here, and I'm so happy that you've invited me into that community. And then I want to bring up to the podium Her Excellency Dr. Elsa Sa Kanza, who's the ambassador from the U.S. Republic of Tanzania. Please come.
Dr. Alvin Hathaway, Sr., President CEO of Beloved Community Services Corporation and our dear host, the Honorable Brandon Scott, Mayor of Baltimore, the Honorable Congressman Kwesi Mfume, U.S. Representative for Maryland's 7th Congressional District, Excellency Ambassadors, my dear sisters, and other members of the Diplomatic Corps present this evening, corporate and philanthropic leaders, community leaders, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. A very good evening to you all. Good evening. Good evening. It is my distinct honor and privilege to be here with you all this evening. At the outset, I'd like to thank Dr. Alvin Hathaway and his family for inviting me to participate in this important reception to honor the grand opening of the Amenity Center, proudly named after the distinguished Justice Thurgood Marshall. I feel very blessed and honored to be in this beautiful city of Baltimore. As a resident of Bethesda, this particularly beautiful city and corner of Maryland. Today's reception is more than just the Amenity Center. It's also about commemorating the life and achievements of Justice Marshall. He was a beacon of inspiration, a great leader whose vision and dedication have left an indelible mark not only in the United States, but also in Africa and beyond. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Justice Marshall was a dear and good friend of Africa. One cannot speak of him without talking about the civil rights movement in the United States on one side of the coin, and African decolonization struggles on the other. The 1960s was one of those remarkable periods, a decade that saw a rising in civil rights movements in the United States and decolonization movements in Africa, which eventually led to the independence of many African states. Africans and African Americans, including Justice Marshall, worked closely together in these movements. Tanzania was a significant hub for civil rights activists and liberation movements inside and outside of Africa. Under the leadership of President Julius Nyerere, we call him Mwalimu Julius Nyerere, the first president of Tanzania and father of our nation, the country was committed to the liberation of Africa and support for the oppressed throughout the world. Tanzania was the headquarters of the African Liberation Committee, formed by the Organization of African Unity, now African Union, focused solely on the liberation of Africa. The country therefore hosted almost all African freedom fighters, especially from the southern African regions. Tanzania was also a key member of the Frontline States, a coalition of African countries from the 1960s to the early 1990s, committed to ending apartheid in South Africa, Southwest Africa, today Namibia, and Southern Rhodesia, today Zimbabwe. President Nyerere was chair until 1985, and thereafter President Kenneth Kaunda of Zambia took over as chairman. The Frontline States Coalition was disbanded after Nelson Mandela became president of South Africa in 1994. Tanzania was not only a center for African liberation movements, but also attracted international civil rights activists. For instance, many black leaders from the United States of America and the Caribbean states were attracted to the country's policies and visited Tanzania in the 1960s and 1970s, including Malcolm X, who visited Tanzania in 1964. Many black people from the USA and the Caribbean immigrated to Tanzania and other parts of the continent. Due to its role in the liberations movements in Africa, Tanzania inspired many black leaders in the United States of America and the Caribbean, and as a result, even Kiswahili names, beliefs, and vocabularies were adopted by many African Americans, such as those that are used in the Kwanzaa holiday. Kwanzaa means number one in Kiswahili. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, although Justice Marshall didn't directly work with Tanzania, his work touched Tanzania too, as he was working closely with our African brothers and sisters, striving for the common cause, ending colonialism and oppression. He stood with us in our search for justice and struggle for independence. He helped some of our countries to draft the first Constitution and Bill of Rights, particularly our immediate neighbor, Kenya. He was Africa's dependable ally throughout his life. So thank you, Baltimore and Maryland, for giving us Justice Marshall. I'm honored to be part of this historical event which honors him. In the same vein, I would like to congratulate Dr. Hathaway and his team and everyone who has been involved in this important project, particularly your wife. I know Justice Marshall is smiling up there, knowing that this former school has turned into an amenity center, which is named after him, and where people will come to learn, grow, and thrive in all walks of life. Indeed, a life well lived is an everlasting legacy. I thank you for your kind attention. Asanteni sana.
Thank you so much. Before we move on with the program, I want to thank BWI, Bank of America, CAF First, Johns Hopkins University for their support of the grand opening weekend. I want to do a special recognition. Can Jeff Hargrave please stand? This is the contractor for the building. His team, Sarsfields Williams, could you please stand? Sarsfields Williams is the project manager for this amazing building. And Mr. Dale Green, could you please stand? The architect for this building. Best in class, led by Dr. Hathaway. We also want to thank Cross Street Partners who, behind the curtain, in front of the curtain, made sure that Dr. Hathaway stayed on budget, on time, and met all the requirements for tax credits. Okay, so we want to hear now from our great mayor. Please welcome to the podium the Honorable Mayor Brandon Scott.
Good evening, everyone. I thought we were celebrating the opening of the Justice Thurgood Marshall Amenity Center. We can do better than that. Good evening, everyone. It is truly an honor to be here with you today to celebrate this momentous occasion. And no, Pops, I don't mean Alvin and I having a 4x8 reunion in here. I mean the opening of this center. I want to start by acknowledging all of my esteemed guests, elected officials that are here today, community members, but especially Dr. Hathaway, whose vision and dedication has been instrumental, and we know the guiding light for this project. Let's give him another big round of applause. Because investing in neighborhood redevelopment projects like this one is a vital growth and prosperity for our communities. These projects provide essential resources and spaces that enhance the quality of life for residents. I'm looking for a place to have a wedding reception. I'm going to call you about that later on. Promote social... like that. I swapped it. There we go. I just swapped it. And they also promote social interaction and really a sense of pride for our communities. By focusing on that kind of sustainable development, we ensure that neighborhoods grow in a way that benefits future generations. And I know in West Baltimore, I don't have to say that that wasn't always the case. Preserving the cultural heritage while embracing innovation and progress at the same time. Your unwavering commitment and visionary leadership, Dr. Hathaway, has been the cornerstone of this project. Your efforts have not only brought this center to life, but have also inspired a renewed sense of hope and unity. And music into the community. We are deeply grateful for your contributions and for championing this cause. Your work here will have a long-standing impact on the generations to come. We all know that Justice Marshall was a trailblazer, a champion of civil rights, and the first African-American Supreme Court justice. His tireless fight for justice and equality has left an indelible mark on this nation. But having this celebration today, when the Supreme Court showed again today that is a shell of the institution on which Thurgood Marshall sat, is a fitting thing. And I can't help, as we're sitting there, but think that he is sending us a message from the afterlife that we must not give up the fight for dignity, equality, and fairness, but instead go deeper and deeper and deeper into that fight. Because if we don't, many, if not all of the things that Justice Marshall told and worked for and accomplished will die simply because of our silence and inaction. So as I get ready to take my seat tonight, I'm going to say to all of us to let us continue in the fight the way that he would want us to, the dignified but West Baltimore way. Congratulations, everybody. Let's keep the fight alive.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Please welcome Speaker Adrian Jones, who will present a proclamation to Dr. Hathaway on behalf of the delegates of the state of Maryland. Speaker Jones.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening to you, too, and especially to you, because you're our future. It's a pleasure to be here tonight to celebrate the grand opening of the Justice Thurgood Marshall Amenity Center. For West Baltimore, this new center will bring hope to neighborhoods too often left behind. For the children and students who will walk through its doors every day, it will be a spotlight for educational opportunities. For those who need a job, who need legal support or trauma-informed care, it will be a reliable source of empowerment and assistance. This center will change lives. So it is fitting that it's named after Justice Thurgood Marshall. His legacy is important to all Marylanders, but in particular to me and my family. My brother is here as well. In the 1930s, my aunt, Margaret Williams, was told that she couldn't go to Catonsville High School in Baltimore County because she was black. So in 1937, my grandfather, our grandfather, late grandfather, decided that he was going to get this representative, and we didn't know. Well, we learned this years afterwards, decades afterwards, that it was Thurgood Marshall. And the Williams, our name, my family name is Williams, Williams versus Zimmerman case, which laid the foundation for the historic Brown versus Board of Education decision 17 years later. I'm so proud that Justice Marshall's legacy will continue to be celebrated and inspire those who use the new center. On behalf of the Maryland House of Delegates, I want to thank and congratulate all those who worked so hard on this transformative project. Now, many of you know I was a capital budget chair, so I always ask about my project. I was for like 10 years. Was this project on time? Yes, it was. Was the project under budget? Yes, it was. Okay. And with that, I'm going to present this House resolution, so you need to come up here. So, from the Maryland General Assembly, if you're a Maryland General Assembly member, please stand if you're here. The official citation is hereby known to all that sincerest congratulations are offered to the Thurgood Marshall Amenity Center in recognition of your grand opening located at the heart of West Baltimore. This center will become a nationally recognized attraction due to its significant investment and historic importance. Beloved Community Service Corporation Gold Lead Quality Restoration sets a new standard for restoration in the historic African American district. The center at PS 103 Henry Highland Garnet will be a beacon of hope, education, empowerment, and assistance, transforming historic West Baltimore. And with that, congratulations, and presented by, on this, it says the first day, but I think they wanted it for tomorrow, but that's okay, all right? And yours truly, Adrian A. Jones, Speaker. Okay, here you go.
Thank you, Speaker Jones. I want to recognize our state's attorney, Ivan Bates, who has been working hard in the spirit of Justice Thurgood Marshall. Thank you, soldier. Appreciate you. This building would not be possible without the tremendous support of corporate partners and tenants who will reside here at the Thurgood Marshall Amenity Center. One of our true partners who has stepped up in a big way is Miss Janet Carey from Bank of America. Please welcome her.
Thanks, Laron. Good evening. I am so excited to be here today. I want to say good evening to all of our elected officials, all of our dignitaries, delegates, diplomats, and everybody else. Someone asked me, why did Bank of America decide to invest in this project? I mean, y'all know I get an opportunity to invest in lots of stuff, right? Lots of opportunities. And I had to say to him, it was that Reverend Hathaway. Not only did he present just such a sound project, he presented it with vision, with leadership, with a twinkle in his eye that made me have to say, I think we have to be a part of that. It was evident how much research he had done, like the fact he knows this history like the back of his hand. He made such a compelling pitch that it really was a no-brainer. And then when he talked about the folks that he would bring in, Jeff and the other teammates, it really was just a project that I knew was right for Bank of America, because we understand that communities must thrive, therefore neighborhoods will thrive, therefore neighbors will thrive. So this is all a part of that ecosystem, and I'm excited because my teammates will come to this building, the Justice Thurgood Marshall Amenity Center. We will teach financial education and therefore continue to be a part of the communities where we work and serve. Thank you. So I just want to close out by simply saying thank you. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to be a part of this. Thank you for your leadership, your vision. Thank you for everyone who participated, whether it was just saying a prayer for him, whether it was writing a check, whether it was putting a nail in one of these, whatever you call them, I don't know about that stuff. But you know, there were just so many pieces. And so again, we are just proud and honored to be a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. I want to recognize Senator Antonio Hayes, former Mayor Catherine Pugh, Comptroller Bill Henry. Thank you guys for coming to support this very, very important event. The Governor of Westmore tried very hard to be here. He was quadruple booked for today here in our talk, so he sends his regards to Dr. Hathaway, as does Nick Mosby, who's dealing with a personal issue. Again, partnerships are important. Tenants are important. Programming is important. BWI Airport has stepped up to provide funding, programming, and space for young folks to learn about aviation and the hospitality industry. Please welcome Executive Director and CEO of the BWI Thurgood Marshall Airport, Mr. Ricky Smith.
Good evening. How you doing? Doing all right? So I remember, must have been about 3 years ago, I was at an event downtown at the Center Club, and Dr. Hathaway was being honored. And so I thought, I'm also involved with another nonprofit, and so I thought this was an opportunity to hit him up, to help me with something. And so I cornered him. I had him. And we talked for about 15 minutes. We left the conversation without a commitment for him helping me, but a commitment for me helping him with the Justice Center. So that just shows you how well, all jokes aside, he helped me as well. So I appreciate all of that. So first of all, it is such an honor to be here. I'm Ricky Smith, Executive Director and CEO of BWI Marshall Airport, and I grew up not far from here on Whitelock Street, Reservoir Hill. And as a kid in the late 60s and the 70s, I don't know how many times I walked past this building and simply did not know the significance of it. And so the work you're doing, Dr. Hathaway, it's for people like me who are much younger, You're shedding light on this building, not just the building, but the life of the late, great Thurgood, Justice Thurgood Marshall. And so I just want to thank you for your, I hope you have humility, because you're going to be embarrassed a lot tonight. I just want to thank you for the amazing commitment and drive and work and will that you put into this building. It will forever be a legacy in this community. You know, this building was slated to be torn down, and it is now slated to build up. And so we just want to thank you for your work. So I remember back in 2004, is Mr. Gibson, is Larry Gibson still here? I know he was here earlier. If he can raise his hand if he's still here. He's here. I remember there are years in the back. Back in 2004, there was an effort across the state, and Adrian Jones knows about this, a move to rename the airport from Baltimore Washington International Airport to Baltimore Washington International Thurgood Marshall Airport. And it was a huge battle in the legislature, but it happened. And so in 2004, the name changed. We opened a memorial to Thurgood Marshall in the airport, and forever since, the airport and Thurgood Marshall has been attached at the hip. And so when we were invited to serve as a partner in this project, we could nothing but say no. And so we've been excited. And so we're going to bring, as a tenant, as a partner, aviation, science, technology, math, programming. Yes. We have a relationship with the Congressional Award Scholar, which is an elite program across the country that builds up our young black boys and girls and get them on the right path. And so we're going to bring, Congressman, we're going to bring that program to this center as well. And so, again, I've never been more excited to do what we're doing here, and I can't commend you enough. Thurgood Marshall has meant so much to us. You know, I often get into battles with my friends down in Atlanta They like to talk about Maynard Jackson and the great Martin Luther King. But we have the late Justice Thurgood Marshall. And I think we should lift him up and we should praise him and we should show him grace. And that's exactly what you're doing. So thank you again, sir, for your amazing work. And I'm just so proud to be a part of this. God bless you.
Thank you, Ricky. I want to do a quick recognition of Gene Hitchcock from Johns Hopkins, an alumni of the Thurgood Marshall Amenity Center, a big supporter. Thank you, Gene. Hopefully we're going to name the alumni room after you. We're working on that. I want to recognize my dear friend, Dr. Tyrone Taborn. Please give him a round of applause. Career Communication Group. They will have a revolutionary program around artificial intelligence, large machine learning, STEM learning, and his own platform. If you have not been there, STEMCityUSA.com is transformative for not only our community, but for the world. So again, Dr. Taborn, thank you for your support. We love you. The next tenant partner is Judge Alexander Williams. Would you please come to the podium, sir?
Thank you so much, and just great to see so many of I call them the big dogs here. I want to congratulate all the ambassadors from Africa for being here and telling us a little about what Thurgood Marshall did. My brother lives in Ghana, Accra. He and his lovely wife, Afia, own the Chez Afrique restaurant. I know you've heard of it, and I've spent some time also in Tanzania, Dar es Salaam. Haven't been to Rwanda, but I just love East and West Africa. So thank you all for being here. Is Mark Wasserman still here? Okay, Mark's not here. He had to leave. Well, one day, Mark, a good friend of mine, said, Alex, I want you to come to Baltimore and meet a good friend of mine, Reverend Dr. Al Hathaway. And we had lunch on Pratt Street, and the good doctor knew I had a center at College Park, the Judge Alexander Williams Jr. Center for Education, Justice, and Ethics. And he said, Judge Williams, I have an idea. I'm going to revitalize West Baltimore. There's a vacant building that's been ignored for years. Thurgood Marshalls went to school there and other legends. And he said, we want you to bring and extend your policy center from College Park here. Before he could finish talk, I said, I accept. And I came into this building about 3 years ago, and it was a mess. It didn't look like anything. But I'm so delighted and excited to have been invited to be a tenant. And our team is going to come. We're going to expand from College Park. The first 3 offices on the first floor will be us. We're going to have several initiatives here. We're going to have a health improvement center here with where's Dr. Thomas? Stephen Thomas, that's right. He's going to be working with barbers and beauticians and stylists to make sure that the citizens here do all their work that they need to do to avoid mortality and so forth. We're also going to have a gun violence initiative. Where's Dr. Is Joe Richardson there? Dr. Richardson, he's going to bring a project here that's going to be looking at gun violence and shootings, and he's going to be working with the impact on families and victims and so forth. And then we're going to have a juvenile diversion program. We hope to work with the state's attorney and the school system, juvenile services, and others so that we can, again, provide some services for our young people. And then finally, we're going to have an ethics academy we're going to develop here. We're going to work with citizens and students and public officials and talk about some of the ethical dilemmas that are faced. Let me say, I'm just excited to be here in Baltimore. I really am. Baltimore is the engine. It is the engine for Maryland right now. And Bruce, I want to tell you, Bruce and I go to Wizards of Caesars tickets. I want to say, Bruce, we just got a Baltimorean as the first, first draft. This is Bub Carrington, and he's going to be over there from Baltimore. So thank you, Dr. Hathaway, for inviting our center to expand. We're real excited. All of my staff that's here today, can you all stand? Some of my staff people that's going to be here working downstairs here in West Baltimore. But it's just a real joy to be part of this revitalization in Upton and in West Baltimore. Thank you, Doctor, for inviting me, and we'll be here to support what you're doing. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Judge. Can I have the Kimball and MOI team please stand? These are our partners. They did all the furnishings, the walls. So I want to give them a special recognition. David Knoll, Sarah Hall, Susan Lee, and Dietrich Neal for stepping in with us to make this project happen. Before we move forward, this trooper has been working diligently to put together something amazing, not only for our state, for our country. So without further ado, please welcome Mary Miller, who will make a special announcement of an upcoming project as part of the Thurgood Marshall Amenity Center. Mary.
Thank you, Loran. I think we should give him a round of applause for his work here. I'm going to come out here because I'm not sure you can see me behind the podium. I'm Mary Miller, and I am delighted to talk to you about an exciting project that's coming to this space. My husband, Jim, and I have been involved in this project from the very beginning of the renovation. And I remember 2 years ago, we were standing in this room in the before stage, and Jim looked around and said, "What are you going to do to animate this space?" And then he said, "Why don't we have an annual lecture here that will honor Thurgood Marshall's rich civil rights history?" I have to say that Jim is from Atlanta, and he always says, Thurgood Marshall should be as important to Baltimore as Martin Luther King is to Atlanta. And that's what we want to do here. Fortunately, I found a good partner. Reverend Hathaway was willing to entertain another one of my harebrained ideas and support it. But for the last 18 months, a group of us have been working to bring this idea to life. We have an amazing organizing and selection committee that includes 2 retired judges, including Judge Alexander Williams and Judge Andre Davis. We have 2 former law clerks that worked with Thurgood Marshall on the Supreme Court. We have a former U.S. attorney in Baltimore. We have 3 law professors from Howard University, from the University of Maryland, and from the University of Baltimore. And we have a number of practicing attorneys that are working with this. We also have the former head of the Legal Defense Fund at the NAACP. Our aspirations are very high. There are lots of talks and lectures that go on around the country about Thurgood Marshall. We want this to be the premier lecture that honors Thurgood Marshall. I never talk about it or write about it without making it a capital L lecture, the lecture. That's our goal. And we think it's an important opportunity to really recognize his history. He has an amazing record. And this is something that we want to lift up and cherish and honor with an annual lecture here of national stature. We have worked to establish an endowment that will support the lecture every year to cover its costs and to pay an honorarium to the speaker. And another goal is to publish these lectures. We think that would be an important way to recognize this. Finally, I would say that I'm most excited to tell you that our first speaker this fall will be former U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder. who will. He will be delivering the first lecture here in this room on September 25th, and I hope that many of you will return to hear that. We've set the bar high, and I want to keep that going every year forward. So I just want to say thank you for listening to this. We're very excited about the lecture.
Thank you, Mary. Before we move forward, I want to recognize the former Director for Federal Mediation Services for President Barack Obama, Mr. George Cohen. I want to recognize his son, Bruce Cohen, Oscar-winning director. Please give him a round of applause, please.
George Cohen argued cases before Justice Thurgood Marshall. Bruce Cohen is the director of Baynard Rustin's Netflix documentary, Rustin. He was going to bring his sister, his daughter, Julia. She did the work on Polly Murray. And Polly Murray is that Baltimorean that laid the groundwork and the framework for Justice Thurgood Marshall work. So happy to have George, Bruce, and them here.
Thank you, Dr. Hathaway. We want to have some remarks from the foundation of our state, which is the education system. And we're fortunate to have 3 presidents from the universities that drive our young folks to make a difference in the world. Please welcome the president of the University of Maryland, Darrell Pines, who will bring brief remarks.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to West Baltimore. Let's repeat after me. Thurgood Marshall Amenity Center. Thurgood Marshall Amenity Center. Doesn't that sound good? Yes, it sounds good. It's an honor for me to be here and distinguished guests. I want to share with you some information that you probably didn't know, why University of Maryland is so committed to you, Dr. Hathaway, and to this center. Let me just read to you a story. As you know, Marshall, of course, was a legendary civil rights leader, sharp legal mind, and first African-American of the Supreme Court. But also he changed the trajectory of the University of Maryland College Park. After joining the NAACP Legal Defense and Education Fund, Marshall was part of a team that successfully launched legal battles against my university on behalf of Perrin Mitchell and Hiram Whittle. An offspring of Perrin Mitchell, stand up, please. Kiefer, stand up, please. Recognize him. Give him a round of applause. Family member. In 1950, Mitchell became the first black student to take graduate classes on the College Park campus. In 1951, Hiram Whittle enrolled as the University of Maryland's first black undergraduate student in engineering who grew up right here in West Baltimore. So that's why we're here. That's why I'm here, on a campus that honors now buildings in the name of Mitchell, Whittle, and now Marshall in our School of Public Policy. It is fitting and appropriate for our university to give back to West Baltimore for what it gave to us. At the University of Maryland, we are dedicated to solving the grand challenges, and that's why we are here with Justice Williams and with Dr. Thomas and with Dr. Richardson, focused on these 3 areas of importance for West Baltimore: the grand challenge of gun violence, the grand challenge of racial and social injustice, which is what Justice Williams is working on, the grand challenges of health disparities, which is what Dr. Thomas is working on. So we are here, committed with you, Dr. Hathaway. It is personal. It means a lot to us. We are committed to the Thurgood Marshall Amenity Center. And if you think Dr. Hathaway drives you nuts, Judge Williams drives me nuts, because he said, you gotta come here, you gotta be here, we gotta be here. I said, okay, Judge Williams, I'm gonna come. And of course, that kind of passion that you just heard from him is why we are here. And I'm so grateful to be a partner. And we're grateful to do the right work on behalf of the public good and behalf of the citizens of the city of Baltimore, and especially West Baltimore. So thank you for having me here, and welcome.
Thank you so much. Please welcome the president of the University of Maryland, Baltimore, Dr. Bruce Gerald.
Thank you, Ryan. It's a pleasure to be here. Of course, I don't know how I follow all these speakers. It seems I was always right after Elijah Cummings. How do you follow Elijah Cummings? Where I want to start from is simply to say that the University of Maryland, Baltimore is very committed to this center. Well, actually, how could we not be with somebody like Reverend Hathaway camping out on my front step, telling us what we got to do? And we've done many projects with him, and I hope we do many more. But I want to emphasize one thing, and that is something that Speaker Jones mentioned, and that is that PS 103 will change lives. And people who live in this community will say, I want to be there, I want to go there, I want to learn finance or avionics or any of the other things, AI, I heard. And I hope they'll also come here because from our professors and medical students and law students, all of the students and faculty at UMB, that they'll also learn mini med school, how to take care of themselves, how to understand health. We also have plans to have the annual Thurgood Marshall Lecture, which you just heard about, and we're very proud to be a part of that sponsorship. And just next door in the Mitchell home, which is almost renovated, our Roar Center, which is a center for victims of violent acts and hopefully to help them recover, will be right next door, and we are certain that they will have programs here as well. The last thing I would want to do for this community is to make you aware that UMB and the School of Law have just formed a brand new center. It's called the Gibson Banks Civil Rights Center. Larry Gibson's in the back there. With Professor Michael Pinard, who's a professor in the School of Law. We're so pleased to have that center now newly in the University of Maryland, Baltimore, thanks to the legislature and the support of the governor. And we look forward to having programs related to the Gibson Bank Center here at PS 103 as well. So thank you very much, Reverend.
Thank you, Dr. Gerald. Please welcome President of the University of Baltimore and former Mayor of Baltimore City and a big contributor to the Thurgood Marshall Amenity Center, the Honorable Kirk Smoke.
The contribution was not as big as Janet's, but I do appreciate that. I want to thank you all very much, and I noticed that Brother Lauren did say that we should give brief remarks, and Brother Hathaway knows that I'm from the school that believes that a speech, in order to be immortal, need not be eternal. So I just want to congratulate and thank everybody. Now, Reverend Hathaway and I went to the same high school many years ago, so he's been hassling me for a long time. But we've been working together, and I just think it's so great that Baltimore City Public Schools can produce the type of leaders that would look at a community and see something. Others may have seen demolition, but he had a vision to see something very important. Bishop Proctor, I have to tell you, I just came from an AME convention. And to see an AME Zion bishop stand up and give a standing ovation to a Baptist minister, that really warmed my heart. I also, folks, wanted to acknowledge Judge Robert Bell, because many of us have worked very hard in this community. And he was our chief. He was our chief, and we really appreciate it. Baltimore City, the University of Baltimore, we consider ourselves not only the University of Baltimore, but the University for Baltimore. So we're going to work in partnership with you. We have a little slogan that says knowledge that works, and we look forward to bringing that knowledge and working with you as we see this center have an enormous impact on the future of this community. Congratulations, Dr. Hathaway. Good deal. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Man, what a run. This is, Dr. Hathaway and I talked about the magnitude of what will be in this room tonight, and it's unbelievable. So, Dr. Hathaway, this is your vision, but we have to have help in D.C. to make this happen. And one of the stalwarts of not only our city, our state, our country, but globally is someone I call Pops. I love him. Please welcome Congressman Kwesi Mfume, who will bring remarks and then present a special unveiling. Congressman Mfume.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. I think I'm next to the last thing here between having a good time and closing out the program. But I want to do some things that are obvious and then some that are not so obvious. It's what hits you when you come into this place. So, Reverend, we've known each other long enough. You were Al and I was Pee Wee, way back in the day, way back. And God has been so good. I mean, who would have thought that you and I in particular would be where we are today? You've been a distinguished pastor, leader of this community, somebody who's been a visionary, and somebody who has always kept us on track. Because I was always getting off track in those days. But I can't tell you enough how proud I am of you, Alvin. Somebody said to me, how did you feel about tonight? And I told them that if you check with Dr. Hathaway, I didn't come to any of the showings, any of the renderings, any of the construction openings, or anything else deliberately, because I needed to have hit me what I had when I came through this door, and that was the spirit of this community, unadulterated. And I want to thank you. Somebody mentioned Larry Gibson. I want to thank Larry way in the back. Thank you, Larry, because way back, even before Alv and everybody else, you had a vision to save this building. Remember, trees were growing up in it. The fire took away the roof. The community was disheartened. So you, in many respects, have put up the foundation, and you, Reverend Hathaway, have put up the superstructure. And we really do appreciate that. Now, bear with me for another moment, because I remember April 4th, 1968, like it was yesterday, and the flames that engulfed this community at 7 p.m. when the news hit that Dr. King had, in fact, been assassinated. And I remember walking down Division Street, because I lived in the 1800 block, and watching people rush out into the streets. Sirens were going off, and everybody was either crying or totally disheartened. And I remember Lena Boone, whose spirit is in here today, is telling us, no, don't do anything wrong. And within hours, there was a sound vehicle coming through the community with the voice of Thurgood Marshall, Clarence Mitchell Sr., and Lena, all saying the same thing: it's going to be all right. And our community was in flames for days. And many of us who were in the streets got arrested. You know, they took us down to the 5th Regiment Armory and locked us up because all the jails were full. I'm not making this up. So when I see what has happened to the community, and when I look now at this building and what it stands for, I'm just completely overwhelmed, completely overwhelmed. My thanks to everyone who's come out to be supportive of Alvin, of Reverend Hathaway, and supportive of this effort. There are a lot of distinguished elected people here, and I won't try to go through all, but to the established protocol and anybody that I forget to call, good evening and thank you so very, very much. Today's Supreme Court decision, as was said earlier, is a real reason to sort of put today in context. What we had when Thurgood Marshall was alive and what we are missing desperately now with his passing and the void that that passing left when he transitioned in 1993. Judge, it's good to see you. Tyrone, thanks for agreeing to put a special center here. Mary, thank you for the distinguished lecture series. All of you who are distinguished college presidents and ambassadors and civic leaders and philanthropists, thank you very much, because what you do today will reverberate long after we are all gone. I got a chance to meet Justice Marshall in 1987. I had just gotten elected to Congress, and he called a bunch of us to his chambers. Now, I have no idea why I was in that group and didn't understand it, but you just didn't say no if the name was Thurgood Marshall. And so I left the Capitol Hill building, went across the street from Longworth, walked over to the Supreme Court and sat down with the rest of us. It was about a dozen, and listened to Thurgood Marshall talk about what he wanted us to do as new members of Congress and why it was important. And when the meeting concluded, he said, you sit down for a minute and stay here. And I said, yes, sir. After everyone left, he said, parent called me this morning. Judge Bell, you got it. Parent called me this morning and told me you grew up on Division Street. Is that right? I said, yes, sir, 1834 Division Street. He said, well, so do I. I said, I know, everybody knows you in the community. He said, so I'm going to tell you one thing. Don't ever let us down. Don't ever forget the bridge that you came across. And don't ever forget the street and the schools that birthed you. This school here, both my mother and my father went to. This school, you will continue to hear about people having gone here and having gone here. It was not just Thurgood Marshall, it was a whole era, a whole generation of young people that came through and learned what the meaning of struggle was and how to endure and how to have principles in the process. So that when he transitioned in January of 1993, I sat with everybody else at his funeral at the National Cathedral, all the justices and the current presidents and past presidents of the United States, and I sat off to the side. But what impressed me that I never forgot was his humility, because when you walked into the cathedral that day, playing on the sound system was that great tune, Fanfare for the Common Man. He wanted everybody to know when you came in there that he was the same Thurgood Marshall that came out of this neighborhood. And so, just a few months ago, in cities, towns, and hamlets across this nation, we celebrated what was essentially the 70th anniversary of Brown versus the Board of Topeka, Kansas. Not his only decision, his most famous one indeed. And some of you will recall that on that day, May 17, 1954, when 9 men robed in black assembled on the steps of the Supreme Court to announce their unanimous verdict, there was dancing in the streets of Richmond and Raleigh and Baltimore and Washington. And shouts of victory echoed and reverberated throughout our communities, because our parents saw in that decision the dawning of a new era. They felt in the innermost part of their bowels and in their very existence that our nation, thanks to Justice Marshall, was now launched on an unalterable course with a firm determination that the racism and bigotry of the past would not survive into the future. And lo and behold, here we are today, in many respects, as Thurgood said, facing the same problems that we faced then. So When I got arrested on the steps of the Supreme Court in 1993, got arrested a lot. I ought to just say that. Went to jail a lot in D.C. When they handcuff you and they read you your rights and then they're trying to get you down those marble steps to the paddy wagon, all I could do was to look back with almost a tear and a sparkle in my eye, saying, I'm doing what I promised I would do. We were upset because there were no minority law clerks on the Supreme Court. And we were determined to call attention to that and to make it our mission. And it worked. But it only worked because of people like Thurgood Marshall, who put his hand on many of us in this room. Who put his hand on many of us in this room, really sort of anointed us to do what you are doing, and that is to try to establish a link and a bond back to the bridge that got us across. You know, in 1954, when that decision was rendered, I was a first grader. I didn't see a white classmate until I got to college. And some of you will remember, what was it, Judge? With all deliberate speed. So when the Supreme Court said that no school system was in a rush to integrate. But here we are. And I want to do one other thing before I take my seat, because I know Elijah Cummings is in this room somewhere. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. And I know that it was Elijah who picked up the gauntlet early on to try to get established in the record and once and for all through the National Park Service federal designation that would open the door for more money and more opportunities. And so it was an honor for me to pick up where he left off. It's so very, very important. And, you know, Elijah Cummings, and we're going to be joined in a moment with his widow, Maya, and with Kiefer Mitchell from the Mitchell family, made his body a bridge that even when this was slow to move, we all kept running across, and kept running across. And so I'm just simply honored to be here. Thank God that he kept me around all these years, because I didn't know I'd live to be this long. But all jokes aside, we are all better because of the life, the legacy, the principle, the conviction, and the sacrifice of Thurgood Marshall. Thank you very much.
Doc, so we're going to walk, Congressman, Ms. Cummings, Kiefer, we're going to walk here for unveiling. Doc.